Hello, I'm Kristen Snyder with Popcorn Talk. I'm here with Daniel, Junge, and Kief Davidson, and we are talking about the Lego Brickumentary today. Guys, thanks for talking with us.
Thank you.
So I want to initially ask about what the inspiration was. I know you said you wanted to do this film because your son was really interested in Legos, but who came to you guys with the ideas and how did you sort of pair up?
Yeah, I wish we could say we were just die-hard AFLs and this is the film that we always wanted to make. In fact, like a lot of films, it came to us serendipitously. I was approached by our executive producer, Jim Packer, to do a film on Brick World, which is a convention in Chicago. And I thought, that's interesting, but that's just one convention. What about a film on the entire community? And then I thought, well, no one has made the official Lego documentary, so we approached Lego. And in fact, they've been approached by many teams, but we had the right approach, which was basically about the community. So they came on board, and we were off and running. And when I started shooting the film, I realized this is way too much movie for just me to make. And so I knew Kief and really respected his work, and we finally, I asked him to come on, and he did.
Yeah, which was awesome. I mean, coming on, because it was still very early stage, trying to figure out how big or small this was going to be. Because obviously when you're talking about Lego, it's a huge undertaking, and you have to do it right. There's a lot of expectations, from the Lego community and Lego fans, and people just, there hasn't been a Lego documentary done before. So it was on us to do it.
It was incredible. We went to the screening last night, and I definitely recommend it. Huge fan of Legos as a kid, and for you guys at home who don't know what an AFL is, that is an adult fan of Lego. So I learned a lot of the terminology. Was that new to you guys, or did you know that terminology?
Yeah. I didn't know that there was a whole language out there of acronyms, adult fans of Lego, and studs not on top. And
that one was strange.
That's a good one. LURP, right? Little ugly rock piece, burp. There's some good ones out there, but their own language, their own currency, really.
So I was curious, I know you guys were editors, so what is that process like, coming on from your background being in editing and then taking on film as directors? Like, do you guys sometimes feel like you were back in the room editing?
Well, my background is as an editor. I don't know.
I'm not smart enough to be an editor. I'm not an editor.
But this was a massive editing undertaking. Daniel lives in Denver. I live in Los Angeles, and we had 2 edit rooms going at the same time, with a lot of editors. And we were able to do it though because there's a lot of stories that ultimately become interconnected. So we were able to break it up. But it's a challenging task to edit something as big as this.
About how many hours did you guys have, do you think, of footage?
No idea.
I think we probably have 200, less than 300, between 200 and 300 hours, which is, that's a lot, but it's not. I think we both have had films with more footage than that. But what made this one so daunting is that there's so many different stories to tell, and how do you weave those together? And some they seem so disparate, and there's people doing stop motion animation, and then there's people using Lego for therapy, and how do you weave all that together into one cohesive storyline? And I think that was the biggest challenge in post-production.
Absolutely. I was going to ask, how did you decide to use an actual Lego man to kind of narrate the whole story?
Well, we needed something to glue this all together. When you're doing a film with so many different stories and it has to feel like one film, we first and foremost wanted to have a narrator, and then in early talks it was, well, it should be a Lego minifig narrator, and let's make that our narrative thread, and have someone with a cool voice, someone that's a little snarky but fun. And then ultimately Jason Bateman came aboard, and he really nailed it. He helps make this the fun sort of roller coaster ride that it becomes.
Was that difficult getting a hold of him? Because I know he's really busy with films.
He's a busy guy, but thankfully our producer had a connection to him. Our exec producer did, and it just so happens that he's a fan of the brick, and I think he appreciated what we were doing with the film. And as Kief mentioned, his voice is just perfect for this film. A little bit snarky, but lovable, and just easy to identify with. And he really provides the spine which weaves the film together.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note too. I mean, the animation is a part of this movie as well. Not only do we have the animated minifig, but we also have a lot of animation, stop motion animation, and the stop motion animation is done by people that we found at the Lego conventions. One in particular, Tommy Wilkinson and his crew, I met at BrickCon, and he came aboard and actually gave up I think he gave up X-Men or something to work on this.
Wow.
You know, as a visual effects guy, and it's a massive amount of work. I mean, we have a lot of animation, and they nailed it.
So the story obviously comes together in the editing room. So how did your vision sort of change when you first got involved with the project to then the end? What were the surprises?
In some ways, the editing process, because we were stymied in the edit, and I think in some ways the process reflects how we started the film. The first thing that I filmed was inside the company and kind of about just a smart company that was creating a toy, and it just seems like such a contained film. And then so that's where the film starts, and then we just wanted the film to unwind in concentric circles because we didn't have a straight narrative. The idea is that it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and what starts as seemingly as a smart company that has created a toy becomes about a community, which becomes about a community that's challenging the company, and the company embracing that, and then more people using it as even a crazier stuff. So the idea is that hopefully every door opens another door, and that's the experience of watching the film, which really reflects our experience making the film.
I definitely felt that after watching the film, and I was surprised to hear that for every person in America or in the world, there is 100 pieces of Lego. Is that correct? Is that correct? I mean,
yeah. And then if they, as a they'd be the largest tire manufacturer in the world.
Yeah, that's incredible. So for our documentary filmmakers at home, what were sort of some hang-ups that you guys learned away, or like some setbacks that you could discuss to try to be like, the gotchas that people can watch out for when they're making their own documentaries?
Yeah. Well, look, I think every film is plagued with pitfalls and dangers, and a lot of times you go into this sometimes thinking the story is one thing and it becomes something else, and that's okay. Like, if this becomes a better film through exploration and investigation, then that's a good thing. This was particularly challenging because it's almost like the equivalent of having like a house full of like raw Lego bricks, and you have to figure out what to do with all of that. There's so many different stories, so many different angles you could take on this, but that field starts to narrow the further you get into this, and it becomes much more obvious. So sometimes time and patience is very beneficial to the process.
What about for you?
I mean, I think that there were some arbitrary or seemingly arbitrary deadlines in the film. Like, essentially, we got endorsed by Lego. We got them as partners, and we needed to start filming right away. We just had to. We weren't ready to start filming, but I had to take the first trip and start filming right away. And then at the end of the process, if it weren't for film festival deadlines, no one would get their movie done. And we had a deadline that was crazy insane that none of us thought we could make, and that forced us to make really difficult decisions in post. And so I think for young filmmakers, having, even if they're self-imposed artificial deadlines, I think can make a lot of difference. It makes your life crazy and stressful, which mine certainly is, but it also, I don't think you'd make films if you didn't have those.
Yeah, I mean, how long did you guys spend on this film? Because if you don't have deadlines, you could literally make a documentary for 20 years if you wanted to. So what was the beginning to end time?
I think it was probably about 2 years in total, but I think it was really, there was a gestation period. The last year was just hardcore. I think I think it was like April or May through November, December, it was nonstop shooting. And then we were hit with that deadline. We have to finish sooner. And the only way you do that is to bring on more editors, and then it becomes a bit more challenging. But we got it done, and we made the deadline, luckily.
I really like the stories that you guys chose. They were definitely diverse. Can you tell me about maybe one story that you guys couldn't end up using that's maybe in the DVD?
Sure. I mean, I followed one story in particular on the first Lego League. There's thousands of these leagues all across the country. I mean, kids that compete using Mindstorms. robots, and it was a great group of kids. They were competing, and ultimately it started to feel like its own feature film. And it was one of those things where it's like, this is actually too big for this film. It would be very difficult to tell this story in a very, very short format, because we do have a lot of, you know, short stories basically that all have to come together in the same way. So that was difficult to lose, because it was a very dramatic, it had like all the like elements to it, like Spellbound, the competition, and like the big event at Legoland, and like thousands of kids like cheering. And it's one of those things where it's like, well, how do you actually kill that? And sometimes you just have to, for the greater good of the story arc that you're trying to tell.
But that story is a DVD extra that we can get on the DVD?
Not sure.
No?
If you say so.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. That's definitely something I would want to see. I mean, because there was just so many of these different stories. And I loved Legos growing up. I still have them, you know, and I had like this Christmas tree arrangement that I made every year for Christmas. So it's like, it was definitely a huge part of my childhood. So I just loved being able to see all the stories come together on the screen and actually see how big Lego really is, because I didn't know the history, and it was really enjoyable film. So thank you guys for that. As far as distribution goes, how did you guys make those choices? There's so many different ways to see films these days, and whether it's theater or on Netflix. What were your decision? And I know you guys mentioned you went to a few film festivals, so if you could just talk about that.
I mean, we launched the film at Tribeca Film Festival last year, and it was there that we were approached by distributors, and
We had a bidding war.
we had a bidding war.
Wow!
All-
Congratulations! That's
all
what,
filmmakers-
yeah, a dream.
Want?
And Radius was the one that won that bidding war. So and that, we weren't in the middle of it. We just left that to the others. But it was great for us to hear get that news that Radius was coming aboard, because they have such a great track record with releasing films. And this film is going to come out on numerous platforms all at the same time, which is exciting. So July 31st, it'll be in theaters across the country, a large number of theaters, which is great, and then iTunes and for download.
We're getting everybody.
And VOD. So yeah, I think anyone that wants to see it, that could get access to the internet or a TV, will be able to see it.
Awesome. Well, I'm really looking forward to it, and thank you, Daniel and Keith, for the interview today. I can't wait to watch it again, actually, on July 31st. And thank you guys. This is Kristen Snyder from Popcorn Talk.
Hey guys, it's Ryan Malaty with Popcorn Talk Network. I love the film. I think the Lego community obviously is bigger than what I thought. It transcends age, gender, ethnicity, physical location. I mean, Legos are all over the world. Do you think that the Danish company planned on being a global phenomenon that would connect so many different diversities? Or do you think it was just meant for children?
No, I don't think so. I don't think they knew what they had on their hands, but at least they were smart enough, family and company, to figure out what they had when it took off. I think that it was realizing that it was a system rather than making a toy for children to play with, but to make a system that at that point children could play with, and then later, much later, recognizing that not just children were playing with this, and people weren't just playing with it, but using it for different things. I think it was the recognition, the company's recognition of that has really helped launch them into this new echelon that they're in now.
I think they realized at a certain point too that this has become bigger than them, that they can't control this. People are going to do what they want with this and actually make it more interesting and better. So like with Mindstorms, which is an example of that, they embrace the hacker community to come in and make their Lego robots smarter and better. And I think that's where things have really gotten interesting for Lego, is that there's so many different uses for this. It's not just a toy, it's a tool that you could do anything with.
The possibilities are endless, and that's a big reason why people love it. I used to love playing with Legos as a kid, and
They're very particular about that.
Really?
We found out it's the Lego system. We all know it colloquially as Legos, but Lego was involved in the making of the film, and that was the one thing that they were picky about. They want us to refer to it as the Lego system of play, which in fact it is.
Lego system of play, not Legos. Back at home, they're not called Legos. Are there any other influences that working with Lego came through in light in the documentary?
I think they gave us more or less unfettered access. I mean, the one thing that we couldn't film was in their design rooms, where, you know, of course, it's a huge company with all these intellectual property issues. So, but we were able to finagle a way to get some footage shot in the design room, but otherwise it was more or less unfettered access, and they're great partners to have on the film.
And it was difficult too, because when I was in Denmark filming with the designers and the whole competition, it's like we weren't in the actual design room. And you can imagine the feeling of like knowing that in the next building there's like unbelievable R&D and like the coolest stuff. But I mean, not only could we not get in there, but even if you did, we'd have to blur out literally everything. It would just be like one massive blur because there's so much new stuff.
It'd be a pixelated blur of pixel-shaped objects. Exactly. It'd be hard to define what was going on back there. But that sounds exciting. You filmed in.
We filmed all over the world.
Everywhere.
It's ambitious.
How many countries would you say you visited on your journey in this show?
There's 11 countries represented, or stories from 11 countries in the film, but then there's footage from all over the world, and we didn't necessarily ourselves film in all. We did a lot of traveling, but we used remote teams as well. This just became too much film for one guy, which is why I brought Kief on, and it became really too much film for the two of us. So we used remote teams. We had many shooters, many editors. It's kind of a team effort.
Very cool. I would say that the word that personifies Lego would be fun. I'd say fun, right? Fun. So if I could ask you, what's the most fun you had in this whole process? What was it sticks out as the most fun?
I mean, I had the most fun filming at the conventions. I mean, just so many passionate, creative people, and they know how to have fun too. I mean, they build during the day and show off their stuff, and at night they party. There were great drinking games with Lego, like drunk builds, you know, where you
really,
it's like every shot you take, you then have to build something. Probably not officially sanctioned by the Lego company, but you know, after hours stuff, which was just great. I mean, there was a lot of fun during some of the shooting of this, for sure.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Maybe we should try getting Lego into the fraternity sorority circle. What was the most fun you had, Dan?
You know, the most fun I had was watching it finished, frankly, because it was such a crazy process getting the film made, that to see it come together, and be a holistic piece that actually works up on the screen. And we saw last night the audience just loved it here at Common Con. Just to see it exist as because this usually Kief and I follow a linear story from start to end, and this story is just so crazy and multifaceted that the fact that we were able to get it into something that feels like a movie and it feels like a holistic experience, watching it is the most fun for me.
I thought it was really neat how the Legolettes, what are they called, the people?
Minifigs.
Minifigs. They have yellow skin, which is, I feel like, the most diverse color, because it was popularized by The Simpsons and modernized by emojis, and Lego figured out that yellow was a great diverse color for their little minifigs. Now, they still went through a lot of hardships, and they got a lot of flack for not being diverse to females. Do you think there are a lot of challenges coming up in the future for Lego? What do you see in the future for Lego and for the future for yourselves?
That's the last question.
That's a big question.
Holy cow.
I put the bricks together for you.
Does Lego get flack from some people? Sometimes, for instance, there's certain people who want to make flack about Lego Friends set. My daughters do Friends, and I'm so happy that my daughters are building. If they're attracted to a certain set, fine. I think Lego will only get more egalitarian as it moves forward, because it's such a massive system, and because it's so flexible. I think it's hard to have rigid parameters. Now, of course, economics is a factor, but there's people that are overcoming that. There's people that are there's organizations that sole purpose is to get Lego bricks in the hands of people less privileged than ourselves. So I'd like to believe that Lego will become even more universal in the years to come than it is now.
Beautifully said. And the future for yourselves? I guess with regards to filmmaking?
Sure. Well, I mean, with future for Legos for me, I don't think I'll stop building until my kid stops building, and hopefully I'll keep going. I mean, it's pretty inspiring to see all the adult fans of Lego. They're doing it at 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. I think sometimes you have to remind yourself that, hey, you don't have to stop just because you're not a kid anymore. So yeah, we'll continue to make films, I'm sure, to the end of our days, but Legos hopefully will also be a part of that. We'll see.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Dan and Keith, the directors of the film Lego Brickumentary, spirits of the child burning deep inside of them. This is a great show. Check it out, and we'll see you back at Popcorn Talk. I'm Ryan Malaty.